Welcome in, my fantasy affarians, and welcome to episode 1 of Bourbon Sips and Fantasy Football Tips. Welcome in, my fantasy affarians, and thanks for joining me on episode 1 of Bourbon Sips and Fantasy Football Tips. Again, episode 1, the premiere. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoy the show. But here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to keep it short. We're going to keep it sweet. We're going to talk Cornerstone rankings. So we're going to talk my top 5 running backs who are 3 years or less in the NFL. That is excluding rookies because we don't know their landing position yet, and it's not worth ranking because position and where they go does matter. But coupled with that, we're also going to talk 5 bargain basement bourbons that you should have in your collection. So again, they're the cornerstone to your collection. They're the bourbons that you have to have on the shelf. So without further ado, we're going to start with bourbon. And we're going to go number 5, Jim Beam Bonded. Out of Claremont, Kentucky, Jim Beam. It's their standard mash bill, low rye mash bill, bottled at 100 proof. It is excellent on the rocks. It is excellent in cocktails. And for $19, you just can't go wrong. Now, number 5, running back. Again, these are running backs going into year 2. They're running backs going into year 3. Coming in at number 5 is none other than a guy that injured. Jk Dobbins, a guy who didn't play in the 2021 season, but we saw some explosive plays at the back half of the 2020 season. We saw him go for 800 plus yards. We saw him go for 9 touchdowns and average 6 yards per clip. Look, Baltimore did not look the same with that round robin that they had going on at the running back position between Latavius Murray and Devonta Freeman and Le'Veon Bell and Tyson Williams, who we all got really excited after week 1, right? It just didn't work out. So Jk Dobbins returning allows that offense to go back to normal and lean on the run, and I'm very excited for him. He is a guy I'm willing to give a player and a first for, right? If I can move Chase Edmonds and a first for Jk Dobbins, I'm going to try to do that. I might even move a player for a player, right? A guy like a Josh Jacobs that I'm not really too fond of. I would be willing to move Josh Jacobs on the back of another RB1 season to coming, Jk Dobbins and the youth that he brings, along with being tied to an explosive offense with Lamar Jackson. So Jk Dobbins comes in at number 5. Number 4, bourbon. Number 4, bourbon. We are sticking from Claremont, Kentucky. We are sticking with Jim Beam, and people's gonna turn their head. Old Granddad Bonded. Again, another 100 proof. Here's the difference. This bourbon is the high rye mash bill from Jim Beam. So if you like a little bit more spice, that's what you're gonna go with, especially if you're a big Jim Beam fan. Again, Old Granddad Bonded, under $20 from your local liquor store. You're gonna find these on the bottom shelf all over the place. I prefer Old Granddad Bonded over Jim Beam Bonded. I love it on the rocks, but I'm also a high rye kind of guy. If you are not that spiced, then you're gonna wanna stick with the Jim Beam Bonded. It's a little bit sweeter, fruitier taste. So Old Granddad Bonded out of Claremont, Kentucky, Jim Beam Distillery. Check it out. My number 4 cornerstone running back, my man, Javonte fucking Williams. This dude is a monster. I loved him. He was my number 2 running back coming out of college last year, going to the Denver Broncos, and we saw him finish as RB 17 or 18, depending on your scoring format, and a guy who literally split basically 50-50 with Melvin Gordon all year long. But you cannot deny this guy's talent. You cannot deny the fact that he can pass block and he's great in pass protection. You cannot deny the fact that the guy can catch the ball, and you definitely can't deny the fact that one person is not tackling this guy. There are no shoestring tackles against Javonte Williams. He's an absolute monster of a man running on the field, and everybody's concern over the last day and a half has been Nathaniel Hackett. the new head coach of the Denver Broncos, people talking about the fact that he likes 2 running back sets. That's where he's going to go. Look, I understand your concern. Let me put it to rest. Nathaniel Hackett, offensive coordinator for the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2017, had the #1 offensive rushing attack in the NFL. Leonard Fournette accounted for 268 rushes and an additional 30-plus catches. That's a close to 300 touch season for a guy. That is plenty to put him in the top 10, and I am absolutely ecstatic to see him move into that situation in Denver. Melvin Gordon most likely being gone, and a new head coach who likes to lean on the run. But then you say, but Brad, Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams, Nathaniel Hackett was the offensive coordinator in Green Bay for the last 3 years. How are you gonna explain that? Well, let me explain it to you. I agree. There was more of a split between Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams, but here's the key. Aaron Jones, 2019, RB2, splitting with Jamal Williams. Aaron Jones in 2020, RB5, splitting with Jamal Williams. And Aaron Jones, RB9 in 2021, splitting carries with A.J. Dillon, as well as missing 3 games. So look, I'm not worried about Nathaniel Hackett coming in and there being some sort of a timeshare for Javonte Williams. He is a superior running back in that offense, and it's going to be great to see him eat. So Javonte Williams comes in at my #4 cornerstone running back. Moving on to my #3 bourbon, we're going to one of the hottest distilleries out right now, and that is Buffalo Trace and their standard straight bourbon, Buffalo Trace bourbon, standard mash bill, less than 10% rye. For Buffalo Trace, you're going to find that for about $25, $26 retail. Some people are starting to try to charge secondary market prices, and I would say it's probably pretty close to worth it, but it's coming in at #3 right now. It's excellent on the rocks. I don't mix my Buffalo Trace with anything for cocktails, but I'll tell you what it's great in, and that's for cooking with. So my wife makes a killer apple butter with that bourbon, and it is to die for. If you have not had apple butter before, you are missing out, especially if it's made with bourbon. So Buffalo Trace straight bourbon comes in at #3 of the bourbons that you should have on your shelf if you're starting a collection. So let's move on to my #3 cornerstone running back, and that's going to be Naji Harris, running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Look, this guy was the #1 RB coming out. Everybody said, look at the volume this guy's going to get, right? He's going to get everything. Even saying that, no one thought this man was going to see the ball damn near 400 times, which is what he did. He saw over 300 carries and over 90 targets. It's absolutely insane the volume that this guy was getting. And that's even with Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool and Ben Roethlisberger throwing the ball over 600 times. So I'm not worried about his workload. It's not going anywhere. This dude is a stud at 6'2", 235 pounds. It's a guy you want. He's like that Derrick Henry light, right? And you saw it. You saw him run with anger, but you also saw the finesse that he can play in the pass game, how good he is in pass protection. I love Naji Harris, and that is why he is my #3 cornerstone running back. Now we're getting into the nitty gritty. We're like, oh my God, what's #2? #1, bourbon-wise, right? Everybody knows who the #1 running back is. Nobody's stupid, right? But here we go. This is one you guys may not have heard of, guys and gals. This is going to be Pure Kentucky XO. This is out of Bardstown, Kentucky from Willett Distillery. This is the highest proof bottle out of the 5 we're going to talk about tonight, coming in at 107 proof. So this bottle Willett used to have this as a 12-year bourbon. Now there's no age statement on that. I do think it's probably a little immature for 12 years now, but even if you're close to that, right? You think about Eagle Rare being at 10 years and how much people go crazy over that. If this is anywhere close to that 12-year age statement that they used to have, it makes it well worth it. And for $30, you can find this on the shelf all over the place. It is absolutely phenomenal and well worth being on your shelf. Again, Pure Kentucky XO from Willett Distillery out of Bardstown, Kentucky comes in at my #2 must-have bourbon. All right, #2 running back, Cornerstone. People are starting to throw around, okay, well, who's he got there? Look, DeAndre Swift, running back for the Detroit Lions, is my guy. This dude deserves to be #2. He was the #5 running back through week 11, and then he got hurt and missed pretty much all but like the last game and a half. And I kind of throw those out, right? The Lions are out. They're not going to throw DeAndre Swift out there and give him 30 touches in the last game of the season that they're really not playing for anything. Look, DeAndre Swift is not only talented, but the other benefactor that people might not think about is Anthony Lynn, the offensive coordinator. Look, this guy came from Los Angeles / San Diego. He was a stud with Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler. He continuously produced high-profile running backs in his offense, and you saw it again last year. You saw Craig I can't even think of his name, Craig Reynolds show up and give you a couple good weeks, and that's all because of the scheme and the way that Anthony Lynn calls his plays, and DeAndre Swift is straight going to eat. I would give 3 first-round picks for DeAndre Swift right now. That's how much I believe in DeAndre Swift and the Detroit Lions rushing offense next year. Now, number one. Look, the number 1 running back, everybody knows. Think about how difficult it is to go and obtain him. You're going to have to pay up unless you just get lucky. And that's where we're at with our number 1 bourbon. That is Weller Special Reserve Wheated Bourbon, again, out of Frankfort, Kentucky, Buffalo Trace product. Again, a wheated bourbon coming in at 90 proof. It's $22 retail, $22. But you'll see it go upwards of 80 on the secondary market, and that's because it is really that good. And I couldn't leave it off the list, but I thought it was fair to make it number 1 because think about my number 1 running back in Jonathan Taylor. We're not even really going to talk about a guy who scored 21 or had 2,100 plus yards and 20 touchdowns. Everybody knows he's number 1 running back overall. But here's the deal. If you're going to go obtain Jonathan Taylor, you're going to have to pay up. You're not going to just pay some fair market value for Jonathan Taylor, similar to the Weller Special Reserve. So Jonathan Taylor comes in at number 1. So just a quick summary before we close out. Top 5 bourbons that should be on your shelf. Coming in at number 5 is Jim Beam Bonded. Coming in at number 4 is Old Granddad Bonded. Coming in at number 3 is Buffalo Trace Straight Bourbon. Number 2 is Pure Kentucky XO out of Willett Distillery. And number 1 is Weller Special Reserve. And my top 5 Cornerstone running backs, coming in at number 5 is Jk Dobbins, running back for the Baltimore Ravens. Number 4, Javonte Williams for the Denver Broncos. Number 3, Naji Harris out of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Number 2, DeAndre Swift. And number 1, Jonathan Taylor. So thanks again for listening in. If you enjoyed the 10 minutes that we talked or that you listened, hey, give me a like, give me a subscribe, throw your comments in. If you have more questions about my rankings, please don't hesitate to let me know. Hell, tell me I'm stupid and tell me why, and we'll have a conversation about it. Other than that, thanks for listening in. Enjoy.